Hello, and welcome to this video from Case Western Reserve University, part of a series on embedded sustainability, flourishing enterprise, and quantum leadership. The theme today is the purpose of the corporation. I'm Chris Laszlo, Professor of Organizational Behavior at the Weatherhead School of Management, and let me begin by sharing a few slides. So, the purpose of the corporation. Here we ask, in the for-profit world, what does it mean for an organization to be effective? We ask this question, which is central to the field of organizational behavior, in order to explore the question, business effectiveness for what purpose? Is it to create a profit? Is it to serve a customer? Is it to unleash human potential, as many OB scholars had urged? Is it to care for the ills of society? The 20th century's most influential management thinker, Peter Drucker, believed that a functioning society is created and sustained by organizations whose purpose is to serve the common good. He advanced this view around the same time that Milton Friedman, a Nobel Prize-winning economist at the University of Chicago, was saying that the only social responsibility of business is to make a profit. So as you can see, there's been quite some debate and divergence of views on the role of purpose in business. In this module, we start by reflecting on how that purpose of the corporation has changed. What would business school students in the 1950s or 1970s have said about the purpose of the corporation? How did business purpose manifest itself in their careers? So in this section here, I ask you to consider these two questions. What is the purpose of the corporation in today's world? And how is it different from 20 years ago? Take a few notes as you consider these two questions and reflect on what you know about expectations today, particularly expectations of new hires in the labor force, about the purpose of business, young customers, millennials, Generation Z, and even investors and what their expectations are regarding the business in society relative to where it was 50 years ago. Now, Peter Drucker said about a quarter of a century ago, in the mid-1990s, that every single social and global issue of our day is a business opportunity in disguise. Consider that at that time in the 1990s, most business pundits were saying that environmental and social issues were, in fact, constraints to business and ethical obligations at its best. While Drucker was saying that they could be business opportunities if you had the right skills and the right mindset. He believed that, in fact, asking this question of purpose was the primary question that any business leader needed to ask. What is our purpose? Only then ask who are our customers? What do our customers value? What are our results? And what is our plan? We start with what is our purpose, and he distinguished it also from other high-level constructs in business, such as values, mission, and vision. So the way to think about it is that purpose is the why. Peter Drucker talked about purpose having to address the question, why does your organization exist, in the sense of what difference is it making in the economy and in society? What, in fact, is it being paid to do? And this is antecedent to vision, which is about where the company wants to go, and tends to be, sort of a high-level idea about what its position in the marketplace might look like down the road. It's different from values, which speak to how the organization and its members behave. And it's different from mission, which is really about what the company does. Now, last year in August 19th, the US Business Roundtable, which is the collection of the largest companies in the United States, 181 CEOs of these large American corporations that collectively represent trillions of dollars of economic power, came out with a statement on the purpose of a corporation, which was radically different from any in the BRT's history, extending over 50 years. You see, the BRT had always advanced the doctrine of shareholder primacy, saying that shareholders are the primary fiduciary, the responsibility of management. And here, the statement said, in part, each of our stakeholders is essential. We commit to delivering value to all of them for the future success of companies, our communities, and our country. And this statement went on to refer to customers, employees, suppliers, communities, and the environment, and put shareholders last, and then was signed by these 181 CEOs. This was seen by many as almost 180-degree about-face from early positions by big business in general and by the Business Roundtable in particular, where again, shareholder primacy, former view on the purpose of the corporation, simply said that the fiduciary responsibility of management of a C corporation is to its shareholders, and the duty to any other stakeholders is purely derivative of that primary or fiduciary responsibility. Other changes were afoot as well. A few months later, BlackRock puts climate at the center of a $7 trillion strategy. BlackRock is the largest fund manager in the world. In fact, today, operating between $7 to $8 trillion in funds under management. Now, the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, talked about climate change becoming an investment risk. First time that this was really acknowledged by such a mainstream investment player. The world's largest fund manager said it will now assess environmental, social, and governance with the same rigor that it analyzes traditional measures such as credit and liquidity risk. While some thought, well, Larry Fink may be simply getting soft in his old age or is concerned about moral implications, if you look carefully, you would have seen that over the previous year, BlackRock had lost over $90 billion of investment, had over $90 billion of investment losses related to its holdings in fossil fuel stocks. And that is simply because fossil fuels now are becoming increasingly non-competitive in the world relative to other emerging clean technology players. Part of this led Larry Fink to make this extraordinary statement that I believe we are on the edge of a fundamental reshaping of finance, again, with great implications for what is the purpose of business. One illustration to consider is Tesla Motors versus General Motors. Tesla Motors, you see here on the left, has a market cap of $427 billion on global sales last year of 368,000 vehicles. General Motors, by comparison, has a market cap of only $43 billion in spite of selling nearly 8 million vehicles last year. So you have a funny situation with two car companies, one worth 10 times more than the other, even though it sells 21 times fewer vehicles. So I ask you to think, what is the fundamental difference that is leading investors to put so much stock in Tesla relative to General Motors and other traditional companies? Ford and others are in the same situation. What is it that has car buyers so excited about Tesla relative to many of the electric vehicles being offered by General Motors. For example, the Bolt, which has also a very good range. I think it's over 270 miles. So what you have here is you have a company on the left, Tesla, which began its life in 2003 with this vision of helping transition the world to renewable transportation. And Tesla changed that statement in 2016 to we exist to change the world or to transition the world to renewable energy, as it now is diversifying into battery technologies and um, solar panels for roofs and so on. So you have an example here of a company that has a greater purpose, but is not trying to push that greater purpose as the reason why people should either buy its products or its stock. It's their driving, as it were, to use the right word, it's driving the company forward, but environmental attributes and this greater purpose of transitioning the world to renewable energy are there in almost in a hidden way because what they have become focused on is simply coming up with better products where environmental and social attributes are just quietly part of the package. And Tesla is far from alone. I won't go into all of these here, but Unilever, the European version of Procter & Gamble, with many of the brands that you see here, has a sustainable living plan. Ørsted is committed to not just converting itself. It used to be the largest fossil fuel company in Denmark. It is now 100% renewable energy and has an ambition to move the whole world to 100% renewable energy. IKEA with its people and planet positive strategy, Natura, Tom's Shoes, Greystone Bakery with its open hiring model that gives people who have prison records, for example, the opportunity to work there. And Triodos Bank and many other examples are now following suit. It's rapidly becoming a path forward for companies to succeed, to doing well by doing good. So ask yourself in closing a few questions. How might the healthcare and the pharmaceutical industry bifurcate towards putting patients first rather than increasing reliance on profit-centered models? What would greater purpose in one or two leading companies really enable in this discussion that has been going on for so long? How might high-tech companies shift from offering product-centric tools to enabling complex business and society outcomes? Google, for example, with this Project Moon is already doing this in some ways, but how might many more companies have a much greater purpose along these lines? So we're talking about moving away from the typical strategic planning pyramid that begins with mission and vision without considering greater purpose, and then drives down all the way to performance metrics and measuring outputs, and instead really begins by rethinking what should be the purpose, what is the reason for existence of the company. Fortunately, there are resources coming now that are helping particularly boards measure and report greater purpose. For example, GRI Disclosure 102-26 provides very specific guidance for companies on how to make a purpose statement tangible and actionable and not just a marketing slogan. So in Finnish, we consider the following assignment. The assignment is to read the very short article called The Changing Role of Business that I wrote with Professor Whiting, also at Weatherhead School, and the former dean of the Weatherhead School last year. And it talks about the Business Roundtable and the meaning of this new statement from the Business Roundtable. and then complete the following. Find 3 businesses that exemplify the BRT statement during COVID-19. Ask how are they putting social purpose into action? How will these actions create business value in each case? And do so in a few pages at most. I hope this inquiry has been useful to you and that you have a few very specific takeaways from the changing role of business and the importance of greater purpose in business in today's environment. Thank you.